what are you looking for? Or if you don't like to end it with a preposition, for what are you looking? If you are going to look at the Bible and we want to know what should we be looking for, Abraham is a very good example of what faith does for you and what's involved in faith. He looked for the city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. That's in a context that we will look at to learn lessons from it. But if you were to ask the question, Abraham, what are you looking for? I want a city which has foundations, whose architect is God, whose maker is God. And ask, is that what you're looking for? A lot of times people like to go shopping. I don't know why it's just women that do that, but a lot of women, what are you shopping for? I don't know, I just want to go shopping. And they will go through the stores, and something hits their attention. They've got the money that week, they may buy it. They weren't looking for it, but it came upon them as they are going, just looking for things. No, you want anything I can help you with? No, I'm just looking. There's that type of look. People go through the grocery stores. They start with an empty cart, and notice that they go through every aisle. Why do they do that? Because it's food. And I might like that kind of food, and I might like this kind of food, and I go through, and I may need this in my pantry, I may need that for the future. All about its food, and you know sooner or later you're going to want that fruit, those chips, that beef, that cut of meat, and you go through every aisle and you say, well, I may need this, but we realize we go shopping that way. I don't know too many people that go to a hardware store that way. Some men may. But usually you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware, and you've got one thing on your mind you've got to get. You've got to fix the toilet. I need that item. I need a certain size screw. I need a 9/16. I need a 7/16. I need a specific thing. And you go find it, and you get it, and you leave. I don't know too many people that shop at Home Depot like they do the grocery store. I may be just missing it. But I may see the guy coming through the aisle 4 times. And we'll meet, because I'm going through the aisle 4 times. I'm looking for something. Apparently he's looking for something. We're not shopping. We would have probably found something in the aisle that's pretty interesting, because we've been by it 4 times. No, we're looking for something specific. And all this other stuff, I don't need. And all of this other stuff was all around Abraham. But that's not what he's looking for. He's looking for something specific. I want a city who has strong foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And that's part of his faith. That's what he's remembered for. So this morning, I would like to look at what looking means. And look at also the words that are used in what Abraham was looking for. And it was read for your hearing. A lot of versions. I don't know what version he had. He had an old Bible. But it wasn't King James, I don't think. But what we see here is the word waiting was read this morning for looking. A lot of versions don't have that. They're just looking for this city. But it's used in James 5:7 like a farmer who is waiting for the harvest. The early and latter rains. He's planted the seed. He's looking for the harvest. He's looking for it, but he's waiting for it. And Abraham was like a farmer, anticipating, looking, waiting for something. Paul was waiting for Timothy, but he expected it. That when the others come, that Timothy will come. I expect to see that, Paul says. That's our word, looking. I'm looking for it because he's supposed to be here at 4 o'clock. He's supposed to be here. I expect it. Looking for something very specific of a person, Timothy, or a crop. And it's Jesus Christ, too. He was anticipating something. In Hebrews 10 and verse 13, he was looking for something. What was it? As we see in Hebrews 10, henceforth expecting till his enemies be made the footstool of his feet. He gave the one sacrifice. He's expecting something. He's waiting for something. He's looking for something. And what he's looking for is that enemies be put under his feet. He expects it. And we know from 1 Corinthians 15 that that last enemy that will be placed under his feet in verses 25 and 26 is death. And that's going to happen at the resurrection. And when that takes place, he will submit himself unto the Father, and God may be all in all. Jesus is still expecting it. He's still waiting for something. The benefits of his sacrifice upon the cross, and the last enemy that will be finally under his feet is death. That will not happen till the resurrection. He's looking for it, but he expects it. Like a farmer, like Paul expecting Timothy to come, like Jesus waiting for that day, expecting that finally all enemies will be under his feet. Abraham is looking for a city whose builder and maker is God, which is not affected by time, but it has foundations that will never be destroyed. And we see, is that the way I'm looking? Is heaven on your mind? Because that's what we're talking about. This city that's coming. And of course the heavenly city. We'll talk about the church, but the church finally being redeemed, as we see in 1 Corinthians 15. That enemy is finally conquered. Are we looking, waiting, expecting heaven like that? Well, let's see what else he says about it. In Hebrews 11 and verse 13, we find that these all died in faith, not having received the promises. And you begin to realize, well, what are these promises? Well, we're in the context what faith Abraham was called in verse 8 and obeyed to go out to a place which he was to receive for inheritance, and he went out not knowing whither he went. We know the context that indeed he was going to end up in Canaan. Isaac and Jacob and Abraham and Sarah and Lot and all of those people are migrating to Canaan. That's the background of this thing. But he said these all died in faith, having not received the promises, but having seen them and greeted them from afar. He not only looked and waited for it, but he also, from afar, not there yet, he greeted that. He greeted that foundational city. He greeted that from afar. Remember in Acts the 20th chapter in verse 1? We see the flavor of this word. After the uproar ceased, Paul, having sent for his disciples and exhorted them, took leave of them and departed to go into Macedonia. How do you take leave of someone? Some translations says they embraced. I think that was read this morning too. They embraced it. There's the idea of paying respect to something. And from afar off we salute it. Because that something is very important to us. And we are involved in embracing that. That's the greeting that we have. Some versions have the fact that he kissed them. They embraced. Well, they took his leave of him. How do you go about doing that? How do you say goodbye? Maybe with an embrace and with a kiss, as was their custom. But the idea of a salutation of respect. You can go down the street, you can go down the walkway, and someone's approaching you, you can just keep your head bowed down, you can just bug on your way, and they'll never pay attention to you. They'll never know who you were, and you don't know who they are, and you don't care. You're just going on your way. But you can brighten somebody's morning by saying good morning, good afternoon. They'll look at you. They may think you're crazy. Say he's got a mental problem. May. But at that particular moment, they know that you have enough respect for them to honor them as a human being and wish them a good day. That's how you greeted them. Oh, you didn't have to embrace them. But you showed that, hey, maybe I'm somebody important to somebody. And what Abraham said, heaven is something important to me. I'm far off from it. It's not Canaan. But it was something he understood. That's where God is. And not only am I waiting for it and I'm looking for it, I'm also greeting it. I'm embracing it. I want it close to me. There's something very important to me. They were seeking something. Hebrews 11 and verse 14, for they that say such things make it manifest that they are seeking after a country of their own. It wasn't going to be the promised land of Canaan. But it says they're seeking a country of their own. They make it clear that they're doing so. When you're saying you're seeking something, I don't need this item in the hardware store. I don't need this item. I'm looking for something specific. I'm seeking something more important than what these other things are. And that's what heaven is. In Hebrews, the 13th chapter, in verse 14, we'll hit on this same theme again, where it says, for we have not here an abiding city, but we seek after the city which is to come. And a lot of that has to do with the idea of a city to come, which is Revelation. We talk about heaven. But they were seeking for that. And I think a good example of how this word is used is in Philippians, the 4th chapter, of what Paul sought. I seek not that I seek for the gift. They had provided for him means as he's preaching the gospel in other places. When I departed from Macedonia and so forth, the beginning of the gospel, he left Macedonia. Here were people, church, that are going to take care of his needs. And he says, once again into my need, not that I seek after the gift, but I seek for the fruit that increaseth to your account. Yeah, I got some money from them. That's real neat. That's important. Because I can use that. Or I got food from them. I got supplies for them. And I couldn't provide for my own. That's wonderful. That's not what I'm looking at. That's not what I'm seeking. I'm seeking something that's more important than that. That's good. It met my needs. I'm grateful. But I'm seeking for the fruit that increaseth to your account. He's looking at the spiritual benefits it does for those people who gave. What about the money? It wasn't about supplying his needs. It was about increasing their fruits of righteousness. And Paul said that in the giving in 2 Corinthians, the 9th chapter. That indeed the righteousness is that fruit that's increasing to their account. That's what I'm looking for, Paul says. And Abraham and all the faithful that died in hope, died in faith, they were looking for a city, waiting for that. They were embracing it, though they were afar off. And they were indeed said, this is the most important thing of my seeking. I've been seeking Haran, and I made it there. with Terah. He died. And I made it to Canaan. Abraham will do that. But that's not what I'm seeking. That's not the important thing I'm seeking. I am seeking heaven. I'm seeking where the abode of where God is. And that's the most important thing. Look for it. Embrace it. Seek it. Desire it. Because it's so much better. It is a better place. In Hebrews 11th chapter and verse 16, in this same context of what they're looking for in the faithful Abraham at the head, they desire a better country. That is a heavenly, where God is not ashamed of them to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. What does this desire mean? I want it. I'm going to get it. You're going to reach after something. There is that great desire that moves you to obtain it. Oh, and there are some things that will get in your way. In 1 Timothy 6 and verse 10, we'll find that riches and the desire to be rich, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, that some reaching after, there's our word desire, reaching after have been led astray from the faith and have pierced themselves through with many sorrows. What is it? It's the love of money. That indeed they have desire to be rich. Well, I don't want to desire to be rich. But I want to be rich, but I don't love money. Yeah, they could work together. They love money, desire to be rich, to the point you're reaching after it. Let me see your life. What are you reaching after? What is something you're desiring and you're embracing? I don't have it yet, but I'm going after it. Sometimes it can be money. Because it's a medium of exchange. The more of it, I can exchange more things into my life from money. I desire that. I want that. But see, here's the discriminating eye. I want something better than all this glitter down here. I'm looking for a better city. This desire is strong with elders. In 1 Timothy 3:1, that they desire the office of a bishop. Desireth the good work. That's not something that he said, well, I'll take it or leave it. We need young men preparing themselves to be leaders and spiritual leaders in the church, and they're going to have to desire it, because when you desire it, you're going to reach for it. That's something you're going to embrace. You're going to greet it from afar. You're going to pay respect to that. That's what you're looking for. You're waiting for it. How I can serve God. And so you start at a young age preparing your character by preparing your mind. And we need elders in the church in the next generation. Need preachers, need deacons, need members. And hopefully we'll always be one. But here's what Abraham and the faithful were looking for. And they all died in faith, not ever received the promise. Which I think is kind of interesting. Because I know now what they indeed were looking for. So were they disappointed? No. Because they had their minds and they're waiting for that. And all of these terms denote that respect and desire and strong feelings for heaven. But when we're going about our daily lives, we're going to the grocery store, getting our weekly or monthly groceries, how we buy them, or going to the hardware store to get that stuff I got to need. I got to fix this lock. I got to do this or do that. And we get all cumbered about with world about us. It's easy to embrace something and it's not heaven. To wait for something and it's not heaven. To be able to seek for something that's really important. And it's not heaven. And what faith does, it guards us from that. Because this is what faith did to Abraham. Because he had what was better for him and looking for that city that God's going to architect of, and it has foundations, it's going to last. You know what it made him be in this life? As he travels from the Ur of the Chaldees in northwest part from the Persian Gulf, from what in the Greek language is Mesopotamia, which is really two rivers, Tigris and the Euphrates, and that fertile valley between that. Oh, he started there. From Acts the 7th chapter, when he was still in Ur of the Chaldees, God called him. God told him, indeed, he's going to go to a land of promise. Why, Genesis the 12th chapter will make you think that it would come after they get to the west part of that known world of Mesopotamia. You think that's where he got it? No, he got it back in Ur of the Chaldees. He just heading with Terah and with all the family. And when he's now about to journey to Canaan, he gets the message again. He's going to be made a great nation. He's going to have the land promise. And you know, with all that anticipation, with all that planning that he had to do, that was something more important than that. You know why? Because he never built a city. He could have. Abraham had the funds to build himself a city. He could have made a city with walls. And they may be a great wall. Everybody would marvel at his walls. He could have had some homes that had foundational rock. But he dwelt in tents. And he was just a sojourner. Living among people, but not belonging to them. Living among them, but an alien. That's what we see in Hebrews 11 and verse 9. When the Hebrew writer speaks of his faith, he says, by faith he became a sojourner in the land of promise. That's what he's promised. He's there now. And he became a sojourner. I'm living among people, but I'm an alien. I don't belong here. This is not my city. It's in a land not his own, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. They did the same thing. Why? For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. I want to tell you, you get your right focus, you'll live differently too. You become an alien to this world. Oh, you're living in it. You enjoy the pleasantries of it. You got all the glitter going around, so this is important to me. Everybody has those things, but no, what's important to you is heaven. And it helps us overcome temptation. Look at 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter, and verse 11. Beloved, I beseech you as sojourners, and here's that word, the idea of pilgrims, don't belong here, but I'm passing through, sojourners and pilgrims, to abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your behavior seemly among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, but by your good works which they behold, glorify God in the day of visitation, whether that's the visitation of salvation upon them because of your good example, or the visitation of judgment, and they're prepared for that because you're a good example. See, when you're passing through and you're not having something permanent, you're dwelling in tents, and this is not my home, you may be free to do a lot of good works for others. It frees you up. Because you realize this is not really the country I'm looking for, but I appreciate it. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they didn't build a city. Oh, Nimrod did. You got some cities in ancient times that give a name to somebody. They could have built a city. Now they're looking for a city. And the question is, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. We sing that, and we sing that, and we sing that. Hope we mean it. And when it gets us on track, say, I mean it. Then you say, I'm waiting for it. I'm greeting it from afar. I'm embracing that. That's important. I'm saluting that. That's what I want as part. And I'm reaching after it. And there'll be nothing in the hardware store to distract you, or in the food aisle to distract you, because you got heaven on your mind. And what you're doing, you're embracing that which is the better. He said, if indeed they had mindful of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. They could go back any time. But they didn't do that. They didn't go back to the Ur of Chaldees. And Abraham died in faith, not receiving the promise that we've inherited the land. His offspring would do that, and they wouldn't keep it very long. But they knew they had a better country. You want to move to another city? Why do you not? Because I like this city. It's better than where I came from. And I hope that wherever we move in this world, whatever drives us to this town or that town, whatever our goals are in our life, we have goals where we want to live, where we want to raise our children. I hope we realize that I'm never going back into the world again. I'm not going to live as an enemy to God. Because what faith does, I trust in God to deliver. He's prepared for me a city. He's the architect of a city that has foundations, not anything temporary in this world. And he embraces the better. That's why a Christian can have all of his possessions confiscated by government or wiped away by a storm, and have this attitude. For you both had compassion on them that were in bonds, took joyfully the spoiling of your possessions. Took joyfully the spoiling of your possessions? They stole it from me. I feel violated. My world is just ended. I don't have anything left. Oh, you do. Knowing that ye have for yourselves a better possession and an abiding one. Yes, it hurts when your house is robbed, when your house is flooded, when a wind blows everything away that you had, destroyed all that you had. You know it hurts. But as a Christian, I got something better than that. And it's the city which have foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And I'm right now greeting it, embracing it from afar, when I am so deep in sorrow of what I'm having to deal with in life. You'll always have something better. And you're going to have to die, or the Lord's going to have to come for you to get it. And you'll be changed in a twinkling of an eye. But that will drive you to be a stranger to this world and a sojourner, not getting caught up into it, because you've embraced that which is better. And it's going to help you save your soul. This faith will help you save your soul, that you will not go back into the world. In Hebrews, the 10th chapter, we read as we enter into the 11th chapter, there are no chapter divisions of the text in the original letter. What was the thought that led up to this great list of names who express faith. Cast not away, therefore, your boldness, which hath great recompense of reward. For we have need of patience, that having done the will of God, you may receive the promise. For yet a little while, he that cometh shall come and shall not tarry, but my righteous one shall live by faith. And if he shrink back, my soul hath no pleasure in him. That's God's verdict on you backsliders. He has no pleasure. He doesn't like the destruction of the wicked. He has no pleasure in them that shrink back. But we are not of them that shrink back unto perdition, but of them that have faith unto the saving of the soul. Oh, you read about Abraham's faith, that's interesting. Sarah's faith, that's interesting. Noah's faith, that's interesting. Isaac and Jacob, and they're living in tents, that's interesting. But it has nothing to do with my salvation. It has everything to do with your salvation. That's what faith does. And if we do not, if we have not looked for what's important, if we have not greeted it from afar, if we do not desire it and reach for that, then we're going to be caught up in this world. And when one persecution comes because you're a Christian, you'll probably give it up to get along. You'll compromise just like that. And you'll shrink back into religious mediocrity and no longer be a soldier of the cross. But you'll be shrinking back to perdition. And what saves you from that is a faith that looks for the city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And there's not anything better. That'll keep you going. And what is a wonderful reality is that God's not ashamed of you either. I don't care what you're going through. That is our better country in verse 16. That is a heavenly, wherefore God is not ashamed of them to be called their God. God, I put my trust in you. And I'm expecting this from you. There's my assurance and my conviction. That's what faith does. Hebrews 11 and verse 1. And to know that you're not ashamed of me. What a blessing. When I call you my God, you're not ashamed of me. Why? Because I'm special? No. It's because Jesus is special. It's because God is special, that loved me enough to send His Son to die for me and die for you. And we can put our trust in Him, that we have this expectation. I'm looking, I'm waiting for that city to come. There's no doubt about it. I planted the seed, I'm waiting for the rains to come. It will come up after it's kind. That's the way it works. And that's the way God works. But to know in that process, God, you're not ashamed of me. It's because of my faith in Jesus Christ. And my faith in God. This faith that we're talking about, that looked and desired and sought and reached after, those characteristics of Abraham's faith has got to be in our faith, or we're going to lose our souls. Somewhere down the line, the glitter will be so attractive that we'll reach after it and we'll fall away from the living God, only to fall into the hands of the living God. And so this faith, I hope, comes to you and is in you, because it makes you a stranger and a sojourner. You'll always embrace the better. You will not shrink back, and God will not be ashamed of you. There's something interesting as we close. From putting Abraham in the list with Noah and with Sarah, that says something about how we're going to have this faith and how we should react to God. There is no faith without the Word of God being preached or taught. There's no faith. Noah was warned of God before he built an ark. He didn't build an ark because I'm jumping out there and one day it's going to rain and I'm going to be prepared. No. God warned him. Sarah, at the age of 90, was not expecting a baby. Can you imagine what the talk would have been in town if she started getting clothes for a little baby or making a crib or diapers? And what's going on with you? You're 90 years old. No. God spoke to her that she's going to have a baby. And God spoke to Abraham that you're going to inherit a city. You're going to go to a land and your seed will possess it, not you. And I never read he's disappointed because he never received it. I know now why. That wasn't what he embraced. He wanted to embrace the city of God. So he could live through life not receiving the promise, having died, not having received the promise. But that faith was not a leap into the dark, showing that, well, I just thought this up and I think it'd be great. No, God spoke first. And secondly, they all had an inward reaction to that. Noah moved with godly fear. That's inside him. That's before he built the ark. It moved him. Abraham looked for a city which hath foundations as he's making his way to Canaan and dwelling in tents while he's there. Sarah at first laughed that she's going to have a baby. But she trusted in the promises of God. That's inward. The outward part is you coming down the aisle this morning to be baptized for remission of your sins. That's an expression of faith. Noah was moved when he built the ark. Abraham was looking for a city that moved him to do what God would have him to do. Dwell in tents and so forth. Sarah had the strength to have a baby. Maybe she was building a crib at 90. I don't know. But she expected it because he's faithful that promised. And when you believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that there's nothing in this world can compare to the salvation of your soul and being in heaven one day, when you have your heart fixed upon that, that's what the inward stuff. It will not take you too much more effort to leave that pew and obey the gospel this morning and become a Christian. What we're doing, we're offering that invitation that you'll obey the gospel this morning because of your faith in Jesus Christ. I just say you'll never regret it because you will now begin to be looking for a city, and while far off, greeting it and embracing it each day that you look forward to it, it will change your life and it will change it for the better. So we invite you, become a Christian, obey the gospel as we stand and as we sing.